In this lecture, we're going to be talking about the first steps of cellular respiration. In order to achieve what our cells need to achieve, they need energy. And the way they get that is through this process of cellular respiration. Let's start with a basic definition of what is the purpose behind cellular respiration. So cellular respiration is a cell's ability to break down glucose to release its stored energy. A couple of things to keep in mind. In order for cellular respiration to occur, O2 must be present, and we will talk about what happens if O2 is not present. And you also have to keep in mind that cellular respiration must occur slow and steady. So, how does it do this last step? In order to be efficient, cellular respiration takes place in several steps, and I'm talking about 3 specifically, so that energy released from glucose may be captured. Now, from our food energy lab, you all discovered that a lot of energy can be released from the food that we take in, and that's mostly where we get our energy from. However, the bad part about that lab is that that's not how our cells work. If we burned our food like we did in the food lab, we would release all this energy. Our cells may only be able to capture maybe 10 to 20% if they're lucky. So our cells have developed a way to capture this energy in a much more efficient manner, and that is cellular respiration. Are they going to be able to capture all of the energy that's released from glucose? Heck no. But they have developed a way that they can capture a good chunk of that energy, and that is that cellular respiration. Just like in photosynthesis, I'm going to require you to know the chemical equation for cellular respiration. Frontwards, backwards, upside down, sideways, whatever it is, you need to memorize this chemical equation. However, I hope as I write this, you notice there's something similar between this chemical equation and the one that you have to know for photosynthesis, and it might help you remember them a little bit better. In order for cellular respiration to occur, I need 2 reactants. They are 6 molecules of oxygen plus 1 molecule of C6H12O6. When those 2 react, I form 3 products. One of them is 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus ATP, aka energy. Does this look familiar to you at all? Hopefully, you're noticing that they are the reverse of each other. And what I mean by that, this is your chemical equation for cellular respiration. For photosynthesis, your chemical equation is 6CO2 reacts with 6H2O to make, in the presence of light, which is your energy source, 1 molecule of C6H12O6 plus 6O2. They are the reverse of each other. In order for photosynthesis to occur, I have to have those 2 things. At the end of cellular respiration, look at the 2 things that I create. For cellular respiration to occur, I need these 2 things. Look at what I get out of photosynthesis. I also have 2 forms of energy. They may be different, but I still have 2 forms of energy, ATP and light. They are in some ways mirror images of each other. So hopefully, looking at that, you can see the differences and the similarities between the 2 processes. Most of the time, if you can remember one of them, you can usually remember the other one. You just have to make sure that you're not forgetting about light being right here and that I make ATP at the end of cellular respiration. That can sometimes mess people up. In the very beginning, I said that cellular respiration has to have O2. If O2 is present, then you proceed through cellular respiration. And there are 3 steps to that. First step is glycolysis. Second step has 2 different names. For now, I'm going to call it the Krebs cycle. And third step is an electron transport chain. When O2 is present, this is said to be an aerobic process. Aero means air. Aerobic means that it has to occur in air. Now, the flip side of that, and we'll talk about more of this when you get into class, if O2 is not present, cellular respiration cannot occur. When it is not present, you have 2 options, and it totally depends on what type of organism you are. But you go through what we call fermentation. There are 2 steps for each fermentation route that you take, depending on what type of organism you are. However, if O2 is not present, this is called anaerobic process. An means lack or missing. Aero means air, so lacking air, lacking oxygen. We will talk about these more in class. Now, to finish out this lecture, I'm going to talk about the step of cellular respiration and fermentation that is the same. No matter what, whether oxygen is present or oxygen is not present, each of the processes start with the same exact step. So no matter what step or what process I'm talking about, whether it is cellular respiration or fermentation, they always have the exact same step. And step 1 is called glycolysis. Can't take you into the really nitty-gritty of this because you've never had chemistry before. So I'm going to walk you through the process. The main things that I want you to take out of glycolysis is what I start with and what I end with, and what else I make during the process. And I mean specifically my energy carriers. Not so much my individual products or individual intermediate products. I want you to concentrate on the start, the finish, and the energy carriers that we are going to make. To start glycolysis, you always have to have glucose. In the very first step of glycolysis, you go from glucose to fructose diphosphate. When you go from glucose to fructose diphosphate, you need a little kick in the pants. You need something to help you get started. If I need an input of energy, who do you think I'm going to call on? Hopefully you're like, oh, it's ATP. And you would be right. In order to go from glucose to fructose diphosphate, I need 2 ATP molecules to come in and get my system going. And then that will give off your 2 ADP molecules, which will go back and get recycled and remade into ATP. That's your first step. Second step, I'm going to take the fructose diphosphate and I'm going to break it down. When you break this down, you end up creating 2 identical molecules. So this is step 2. I don't need you to know the really big specifics of this. Just know these molecules as pGal. But you'll make 2 of them. For what will be our third steps, and there are actually a lot more steps in here, but I'm not going to go through them all. For our third step that we will talk about, you're going to take pGal and you're going to turn it into 2 identical molecules again that are called pyruvic acid. So same thing on both sides, pyruvic acid. What's important between pGal and pyruvic acid is the stuff that you create, not the individual products that come out through the process, but actually your energy carriers. The first thing that gets made between pGal and pyruvic acid is a molecule whose cousin you have actually already met. A molecule called NAD+ comes in and it picks up a hydrogen and it becomes NADH. And you'll create 2 molecules of that on both sides, NADH. Now, does he look familiar to you? Because you've actually already met a cousin of his, and that was NADPH when we were talking about photosynthesis. So if he's a cousin of NADPH, who do you think this guy is? Hopefully, you're just thinking, oh, it's another energy carrier. So it's another way, just another molecule that can carry energy. It's just another energy carrier. but it's NADH instead of NADPH. So don't get those two mixed up. Now, I also create something else down here before I get to pyruvic acid. I create 2 more ATPs on both sides. So 2 ADPs come in, and I get 2 ATPs on both sides. So the important parts of glycolysis, what I want you to take out of this, is that I take 1 molecule of glucose, and by the end, I get 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. I spend 2 molecules of ATP to get this process going, but in the end, I make 4 molecules of ATP plus 2 molecules of NADH. So to sum all of that up for glycolysis, what I want you to take away from this, first off, glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm. 2, 1 molecule of glucose is broken down into 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. Third thing, 2 ATP molecules are used. Fourth thing, 4 ATP molecules and 2 NADH molecules are made. One important thing when you're talking about cellular respiration is keeping track of energy. So, answer this question for me and bring it to class. What is the net total of ATP after glycolysis? Bring your answer to class. Continue talking about the other 2 steps of cellular respiration. Plus, we will go into the fermentation route. And we have 2 different routes depending on what type of organism you are. So I will see you in class.